Welcome. This is Jonathan Whitcomb, Protect Animal Life. Should be started by now. I'm starting a little late. I'd like to start at 4:30 Mountain Time. Didn't quite make it, looks like. But welcome wherever you are, in the United States or elsewhere. This is a Protect Animal Life channel on YouTube. This is Friday, March 19th, 2021. We're going to be looking at some things about an expedition in Papua New Guinea in 2015, particularly looking at some video footage that was captured there of a modern living pterosaur. I think this is historically very important. Many people are totally ignorant of this. This is the actual footage taken by a biologist, Peter Beach, and I believe him totally. There's no doubt that this is a living pterosaur. Very poor footage, extremely poor video. They didn't have a professional wildlife photographer on their expedition when they went to New Britain Island in Papua New Guinea in 2015. This is the result. You see why we greatly need professional camera operators, and wildlife photographers are ideal. But this is footage of a living pterosaur. Peter Beach and Milt Marcy were there, these two Americans from the northwestern United States. I know them both. I can verify their honesty and credibility. They're perfectly credible. I've spent quite a few hours with them some months before this took place in the United States on an excursion. I won't call it an expedition. It was a one-day event where we went out to the Yakima River in Washington State, and the southeast part of the Washington State. And I got to know them, and we talked a lot about a number of different things, particularly about modern pterosaurs and so on. But you notice the footage here was from a camera. It's a perfectly fine camera. There's nothing wrong with the camera. I understand. It's not the camera. The circumstances involved. Peter Beach was on his sick bed. He got up when people started yelling, "Big bird, big bird." He got out of his tent or whatever they were in at the time, got out and into the open in the middle of the day, and he saw it immediately, the flying creature right above him, and he could see the details of it. Let me quote what he said later on when he's describing this experience, okay? Quote, "The animal we saw, it was a pterosaur, and flew not like a bird." Let me repeat this, quote, "The animal we saw, it was a pterosaur, and flew not like a bird." He said much more than that, but that's what I have recorded here, as I wrote down. He has no doubt about it. He's a biologist. He had much better view of it than we have in looking back at the footage. This is very poor, and people don't understand that. They think, well, cameras are at least as good as human eye, so you point a camera somewhere and record it. Well, I've been a professional videographer. I was an attorney firm videographer, legal video in Southern California. I also did other professional camera work. As a professional camera operator and a very small business that I owned in Southern California. I know what's involved with videotaping and photographing, and it's not at all what people assume, that you just, if something incredible happens, you just point your camera at it, shoot, and then you got this wonderful footage. No. We need the professionals. We haven't had it so far. We have a man in Papua New Guinea right now, but we need to get back to be sure that we're Mr. Bean 169, thanks for joining us. Great, glad you're back. Thank you so much. You've been here quite a few times, haven't you? Generally, we got into the habit now that we're having these on Friday afternoons, starting about 4:30 or so Mountain Time, Utah time in the United States. And we usually go for an hour and a half to 2 hours, or occasionally we've gone over 2 hours. But so glad you're here, Mr. Bean, Mr. Bean's 169. And we'll have other people coming, I'm sure. But let's get to the point of this now. Again, I'm Jonathan Whitcomb. Protect Animal Life is the channel on YouTube. And it's mainly about videos on this channel. Videos of modern pterosaurs, pterodactyls, flying dinosaurs, dragons, whatever you want to call them. They're real, and they exist in our modern world. These are not misidentifications in general. They're not misidentifications or hoaxes. I've shown that scientifically with the data that was analyzed early in the year 2013. I am a scientist, a real scientist. I've written scientific papers. One of my scientific papers was, quite a few years ago now, reports of living pterosaurs in the Southwest Pacific. You can find it online. Sometime I'll go into details about what's in that. But for now, we need to get on the title. Well, this is not the title. That's the old title. This is a contact page. Feel free to contact me anytime. If you have any questions, or you want to comment, or you want to just tell me about a sighting that you've had, or you know somebody that's had the sighting, I would love to communicate with you by email. The contact form here is just a form, very simple. Once you fill out the form, you got it down, and it will then would be an email communication that we'll have. But I have to start this way. There are reasons I do this. Believe me. Once we get started, then we'll be just purely working by email and get things done that way. You can find me online by searching Jonathan Whitcomb Pterodactyl or contact or whatever. If you can't write down all these things here with the this is the Protect Animal Life YouTube URL for my channel here. It's not the only channel I have about living pterosaurs. I have another one that has my name. It's an older one, smaller channel, not as many videos. It's called just my name, Jonathan Whitcomb. It has other different videos about modern pterosaurs. If you want to look up my name here, I just put my name in the YouTube search, and it'll show you my channel, which is a totally different channel. Older. It has not as many videos, but you'll find things there you won't find on this larger channel, Protect Animal Life. Okay, good. We have some people here now. Banshal Yasharala. Thank you. I think it's the first time you were here. Banshal Yasharala. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Very glad you're here. Welcome. Feel free to participate, ask questions, or make comments, whatever you'd like. I'm really grateful that you're here with us. I'll get back here to this video footage. We have a video of modern pterosaurs. I don't usually tell people about this, not as much as I should perhaps, but we do have very credible when you take things in context. Peter Beach on the right and Milt Marcy here on our left, and Peter Beach here. I know them very well. I took this video myself, but we got this still image from here. I interviewed them right here on the bank of the Yakima River. This was in the year 2014, as I recall. It was a few months before their expedition that we're going to talk about. Okay. But they're perfectly credible. I mean, I got a lot of information. I told them all the things I was doing. They've gone on expeditions before in Africa, but we'll get to that another time, looking for a dinosaur. But this is a pterosaur expedition they went on here, where they got this video footage. What is the most important part of this expedition, in my opinion, is not the video footage that was recorded. It was the sighting itself. The sighting that these two Americans, plus a bunch of natives that were surrounding them, all looked up in the sky and saw this strange flying creature, very large. Let me quote again what Peter Beach, excuse me. Peter Beach said, quote, "The animal we saw, it was a pterosaur, and flew not like a bird," unquote. Those are the words of a biologist, a man who has taught biology as a college professor in a small college in the northwestern United States some years ago. A biologist. That's the important point. He saw it much better than what we can see here. You notice this footage here? You see at first almost nothing. There's a little black dot here, and then you see a tiny little black thing, and then it's magnified in post-production and getting a slowed down image and stabilized. Stabilizing means in the video edit you put that image so that it looks like it's not jumping around. In other words, you can actually see it better when it's not jumping around. it's you can call it editing, but it's not altered in a way that's going to be changing the important aspects of the video. I mean, I believe that these people are honest, that they worked for Milt Marcy and Pete Beach, and I have no reason to doubt them. Milt Marcy and Peter Beach got a look at the edited result, and they're the ones that had a better view. Please understand, when these two Americans were there looking up in the sky, and Peter Beach with his camera, even though he was sick and thought he might fall down from the illness he had, he still held the camera up and almost in the sun and trying to get it, but he didn't have the proper viewfinder, so he couldn't zoom in on it at all. I'm a professional camera operator. I assure you, when an amateur has a camera handheld trying to find something, zooming in is not the answer. That means you probably will get nothing of any value in this type of situation. You have to be sure that you have the image actually in view. And it's the same with the profession too. If you're not careful, you zoom in and you just will miss everything. Professionals know this. Okay, we'll get back to the chat here. Now we have Caesar Sons. Hi, thank you very much for being here, Caesar. Welcome back. I'm sure you've been here before. And Banshal Yesharala. I changed my name. I was Tazama Amath. Well, we're grateful for your presence with us, that you're here. And can we call you Ban or whatever you, Banshal, whatever you like. Glad you're here. And for anyone, please feel free to participate. It looks like this will be pretty much a regular for us on this channel, the live stream at in the afternoons, American time, about 4:30 till maybe 6 o'clock or so, maybe later, in the afternoon Mountain Time, which would be different depending on where you are in the United States or elsewhere. Bon, okay, Bon, thank you for joining us. Have you ever heard about this type of thing, Bon? Modern pterosaurs and people seeing live pterodactyls, that kind of thing. Is this something totally new? Or you've heard about this before, or read about it, or seen something on the internet? As this is something been going on for quite a while. I've had my investigation on this for 17 and a half years, and in that time I've written 5 nonfiction books, not including extra editions of some books. 5 nonfiction books, 1 scientific paper in a peer-reviewed journal of science, and over 1,000 web pages and blog posts I've published online about these remarkable flying creatures. And okay, good. Van knows about this. And Ven 1, I think this is the first time you're here. Ven 1, I don't recognize your name. Welcome. Delighted you're here. Okay, and Bon, you've heard about New Guinea, or you know about sightings there? Delighted that so many people are learning about these things now. Let's go back to this particular Milt Marcy and Peter Beach shown here. I know them very well. I can verify these are honest men. I've worked with them. I've communicated with them. I've interviewed them. We spent hours together talking. I can verify that they're credible men. They're serious persons. Milt Marcy is a professional insurance man in the Portland, Oregon area, and Milt Marcy, Peter Beach lives not too far from him, and is a former professor of biology, a small college in that part of the country, near the Portland area, I believe, as I understand. And here's the video footage, which is not the most important part of their expedition, and I have to explain this if anybody's just gotten on here. The most important part of their expedition is that 2 Americans, one of them being a biologist, had a very clear view of a modern pterosaur flying right over their heads in the middle of the day, reasonable, almost clear weather, a few clouds, but a clear view of it, even though it was a distance quite a bit above them. They clearly saw it much better than what is shown in this footage. They just didn't have a wildlife photographer with them, nobody professional with video, and under very challenging conditions. When the person holding the camera, Peter Beach, had just gotten out of a sick bed. He was sick that day, and everything seemed to be wrong. The sun was almost shining right at him. This flying creature was almost in the sun, and Peter could not really get good, even with the amplification, the video processing to get a better view. We really need to understand the value of this expedition was in their sighting with their eyes, when they got a much better information about this creature. Again, I'll quote. This is what the biologist said afterwards. Quote, "The animal we saw, it was a pterosaur and flew not like a bird." Unquote. He said much more than that about I believe, the claws and the wings and other aspects that just birds don't generally have. And it was very large. And I should tell you something about this expedition. They saw more than that. It was they arrived there. They were delayed because of I guess called a cyclone in the Pacific, not a tornado, but it's the same thing. This terrible storm that came through. They couldn't go up into the interior of the island for a while. They had to waste a lot of time. And finally, the weather was such that they could get up there on a helicopter. I have another video on that on this channel, Protect Animal Life. If you want to see that, I recommend that channel. That video on this channel, Protect Animal Life. Anyway, they got up there, and at some point in their expedition, they went out into the jungle, and they were shown by the natives a nest that was built by one of these flying creatures, which they call pterosaurs. The natives don't have that name for them, but there is a modern pterosaur. It's not a ropen. I went on an expedition to a much smaller island to the west of this island. In the year 2004, I led an expedition there. I didn't see the animal, but I got great interviews with some people that had seen it. Anyway, the point is, they went out into the jungle here, and they found the nest, though it was mostly destroyed because of that bad weather. But it was way up high in a tree, and they described it in one of the videos. I might have some of that, or go to the original video, which is on YouTube. Sorry, I don't have the URL right here. But this is incredible. What they described is a living pterosaur, and I think people need to know about this. Let's get back to the chat. Okay, we have a lot going on here. We need to see what people are contributing. And, okay, yeah, Ven1, yes, sir, followed you from Facebook. Oh, great. Thank you, Ven1. Greetings all from Eric Sachs. I don't recall, Eric, if you've been here before. Your name looks familiar, but I'm not sure. Cesar Sans, thank you. It's very impressive, that video, an excellent witnesses. Thank you. Eric Sachs says, my question is, where do they roost or breed? Well, perhaps I answered one question there. And in this particular location, now they're found in many parts of the world. I have received eyewitness reports from 5 continents, many countries all over the world, about these flying creatures, and they're different species. So we be aware of this, different species, different types. The most common one is what we call the ropen, R-O-P-E-N, ropen. And that's not the kind that's shown here in New Britain Island with this expedition, but the 2 Americans did see a nest that was much destroyed by the bad weather, but it was way up high in a tree, very high in the tree. So some of them do nest in this part of the world, in these islands, they do nest in a tree. I can't say that about ropen, so that may be different. It's a different kind of modern pterosaur. But let's see. I still need to find a picture of a UFO that seems to have a pterodactyl-looking creature in it. I posted it into a Persian page on Facebook years ago. I'll try to find it when I get a chance. Thank you very much, Ven1. So let's get on. Please feel free to participate. We're having more people coming on now. And let me check to see exactly how it's going. Oh, yeah, a good number of participants and people watching and listening here. This is great. We can go review a little bit of what's been covered before for the newcomers, but don't want to spend too much time on old things because some of you have been here before and you know about this. This is the footage we have from Papua New Guinea. It was recorded in the year 2015, which would make it 11 years after my expedition, and in a bigger island than what I was on, deep in the interior. It is a modern pterosaur, but not a ropen. It does not have a long tail. Some persons have just thrown out the speculation, oh, it's a bird. It's really what it is. It's poor video footage. That's what it is. But it actually is of a modern pterosaur. It's just the circumstances were really bad. Bad luck at the time. If a couple things had been different, it could have been much better recording. But just everything went against them except that they were able to get some footage. Anyway. So let's get on. As many books have been written. This is one of my books, Live Pterosaurs in America. And this is the one that's apparently most liked, at least in the reviews. It has the most number of positive comments. And this is the third edition of Live Pterosaurs in America. There's many other books I've written, 5 nonfiction books, and other authors have written nonfiction books, not generally that many, but there are other books about it. And there's Searching for Opens and Finding God is a much larger book, which I think is much more valuable and useful to most people, mostly about cryptozoology, not religion, but that's the title. And it does have a little bit of religious aspects about the Bible and so on. But it's 95% at least about cryptozoology, about these flying creatures themselves, some sightings of them. And we've gone over this before. It's the American hammerhead ropen, for example, is not a misidentification of a great blue heron or any kind of crane. It's not a misidentified bird. It's not a misidentified shoebill crane, which is generally they live in pretty much central areas of Africa. They don't generally travel much. They wouldn't be found all over the world, causing people to think they've seen a pterodactyl. And the description is different anyway. The wingspan estimates too show from my research. I am a scientist, really, though the critics and skeptics don't like to mention that, but I am. Wingspan estimates shows that it's not from misidentifications or reasons why it's such an even range, and we've already gone over that in a previous video, a live stream here, so we won't spend much of time on that except to show that misidentified herons or cranes or other kind of birds would not cause many eyewitnesses to make estimates in this particular kind of range of estimates. Doesn't necessarily mean that the wingspans were close to what people estimate, of course. It's just an estimate when they see the flying creature, But it teaches us a lot about the eyewitnesses and some things about the animals. Well, a lot about the eyewitnesses. In particular, they're not lying and they're not misidentifying common birds at all. That would not produce anything remotely like this range of eyewitness estimates of sizes. So, let's see. Okay, we need to get back. I need to look at something here a little differently here. Do you think they all show signs of luminescence? This is from Ven 1. Yeah, luminescence. Bioluminescence is I'm sure what you're talking about. Bioluminescence is a glow that comes from some kind of biological activity. A firefly is a well-known example. But yes, some of these flying creatures do have bioluminescence. And, I think we had a video on this some time ago. The point is that And let me see where I can get something where you can... The creature here, American hammerhead ropen, that I have behind me here. This is somewhat unsure about whether this particular one has bioluminescence. I don't know. I can't say for sure. There's so much we have to learn. So much I need to learn about these animals. Still, I probably spent more time on this investigation of these flying creatures than any other person on the face of the earth, as far as I know. That doesn't mean that I'm right or correct or more objective or more intelligent or than any other of my associates. It doesn't mean that. It's just that I have a much greater amount of resources to deal with and to delve into, because so many hundreds of persons have contacted me about their sightings over the past 17 and a half years. And as far as I know, I mean, I still feel mostly ignorant, and there's so much to learn. We need scientific research. We need more scientists to take this seriously. Some of them do, but many of them don't even know about this. We need to get the word out. Okay, get back to the chat. The ropen of Papua New Guinea is definitely bioluminescent, and there are other examples of flying creatures in Papua New Guinea that have different names that may be the same species, but not necessarily. I mentioned the ropen, which gets its name from the Kovai language of a particular area on Umboy Island, where I was doing my expedition in the year 2004 and interviewing many persons, but I never got to see the animal itself. It's just bad. I guess it's a number of reasons for that. Okay, M, thank you for joining us, M. Can't make out long spade tail or crested head. However, can make out it's rather large. Looks more like feathered thunderbird. Having said that, it is poor footage. P.S. Aren't they nocturnal? Well, there's a lot of things there, yeah. First of all, this footage here that we were just at a little bit ago, we will get back to it. But we need to look at a little bit of this. It is very poor footage, absolutely horrible. That's why I say that the main value of the expedition and the sighting was not in the video recording. It was in how Milt Marcy and Peter Beach from the northwestern United States got a clear view of it with their eyes, and they got to see much more than what we can see in the video. Remember, many times video is not nearly as good as the human eye unless it's a professional camera operator, which they didn't have on their expedition. But let's deal with this. Yeah, this is not a kind of modern pterosaur like the ropen. It does not have a long tail. It does not have a spade on a short tail. If it does have a short tail, I don't think it would have a spade on the end. Like what's behind me here, then this animation of recreation has a structure at the end of the tail. That would be in a ropen. And on New Britain Island, this very large island in the Southwest Pacific, what they have is a creature that's not necessarily always nocturnal. It comes out more in the daytime, and there have been a number of sightings of it in the daytime. It might come out in the daytime, possibly, but it's not so confined like the ropen to nocturnal behavior. And it is large. Definitely, you're correct there. It looks like a feathered thunderbird. Well, it's really too poor quality footage to really say that kind of thing from looking at that. But, yeah, I think we covered that. Okay. But let's see. We have quite a few people here today, I think, right now. I mean, yeah, it's a good number here, so we'll keep on going. I led the first of two expeditions. I should mention something about the second one. In the year 2004, we had two expeditions on a small island, just, Yabanya. We call it pterodactyl commonly as the nickname. Is what people usually use, that word. Technically, it's not the right word, but it's so common that I use that word a lot just so people can know what we're talking about. The correct, scientifically correct word is pterosaur for this type of flying creature. And I should perhaps mention now, I'm not using the word pterosaur in the dictionary definition because, you know, look at any dictionary, it will talk about extinction or being extinct. And of course, if something alive, it can't be extinct. So in that sense, you know, my associates and I do not use the word in that sense, but we believe these flying creatures are descended from pterosaurs that lived in the past, however long ago that was. And Van 1 says, do you have any expeditions planned with some drone pilots to areas where you have seen activity in the future? That is an excellent question for right now. Let me tell you what's going on. Just today, I finished a video on another channel on YouTube. It's called by my name if you want to see that video. My name is Jonathan Whitcomb, and that's a channel name from my old channel that has a few good videos on living pterosaurs, and just today uploaded one. I should tell you before you watch it, though, the most recent video on that channel, by the name of the channel Jonathan Whitcomb on YouTube, that video uploaded today is mainly not for people like you guys, like us. It's in particular, one particular government official I was trying to get influence on in Papua New Guinea. He may be helpful in promoting one or more expeditions in that part of the Southwest Pacific in that country. And there is a man, we should probably get into this in the next video, perhaps. Rex Yappy is the name of this eyewitness who had an incredible sighting, close sighting, of a huge ropin just off the coast of Umboy Island, where I led my expedition. Just a few years after my expedition, he was in a probably similar boat, or maybe the same boat that I was in, a banana boat, maybe the same one that I had been on a few little earlier. And he and the natives in that boat had an incredible sighting of a ropin, but not flying. It was mostly submerged underwater above the reef, and the tail was above the water. So they saw the tail. It's very like, if I'm not mistaken, totally, I think he estimated the length of the tail at 7 meters. That's 23 feet long. Incredible. It's not a misidentified bird. It's not a flying fox fruit bat, which has practically no tail at all. You know, you can hardly even see a tail in the fruit bat that they have there that are common. And there are a number of differences anyway, but how did we got here, I remember now, is because expeditions with some drone. We have a man, the eyewitness has been for about 2 years or something like that. I don't know exactly. Many, many months. I've been trying to support him in his expedition in that area in Umboy Island. He has a team of men, other natives that follow him. They go around. They've had a drone for a while, and they've been using the drone to fly around. But remember, they're looking for the ropin. They're not on New Britain Island. They're looking for the ropin, which is nocturnal. It occasionally comes out. He was lucky one time. Maybe I should talk to him about this. Be sure he understands. But he was extremely lucky to see it in the daytime. It's not common. But anyway, they're actually having drones now, and they need support. They need to have new batteries. The batteries are just totally gone now. They're no good. They used up those 2 batteries they had. They're just worthless. They need a couple $100 or something like that for the batteries. So I'm trying to get a government official there to help with, I can't mention his name right now because it's a delicate situation, but it's to help with buying those batteries for Rex so that they can get the drone back up. But then again, the ropin is nocturnal, so they have to deal with it a different way. Okay. Caesar Sconce expeditions in Papua and places like so are very harsh, extremely so. I can guarantee you that. Not pleasant to explore. I mean, it sounds like a wonderful adventure. Ooh, go to this jungle somewhere on this island and explore, look for dinosaurs and pterosaurs. Not pleasant experience in general. Challenges galore. Yeah, M says, I believe the credible witnesses. Yeah, I do too. My wife will catch the phone, don't worry about it. Raptor. Rocks, there was a big winged creature that was sighted in Puerto Rico, and a man was attacked and left him large slashes on his belly. He told his story at the local news. It was described as a gargoyle. It could have been a modern pterosaur, possibly. I wouldn't be surprised, but a lot of people are not acquainted with this research that my associates and I are doing on the concept that many of these flying creatures that people see that are very strange looking, they're actually modern pterosaurs. And that's very different than a bat or a bird, especially different than a bird. But they are somewhat bat-like in some ways. And sometimes they do attack people. We have had some videos here about attacks on people, and we need to emphasize that occasionally that can be a danger, a problem for people. Let's see how we have participation. It's good. Good number of persons here. We can go into a little bit. The Ven one says, thanks for sharing. I'll definitely check out your other channel. The account of the creature flying underwater sounds with its tail exposed sounds really crazy. Yeah, it's weird. But the Ropen of Umboy Island, I should mention that at the end of my expedition in the year 2004, as I was leaving and got on the small ship that takes us back to the mainland of Papua New Guinea, my interpreter and I were together, and I was pondering everything that happened during those 2 weeks and everything I learned, and I got this epiphany, if you will. Oh, there is only one Ropen on Umboy Island at a time, in general, who dominates and is seen at night, at least. There's exceptions. I know there are exceptions, and we can get to that. But in general, there's only one Ropen that stays there and is constantly going out at night to catch fish or other things on the reef. But it's not just fish that it catches. It probably uses a bioluminescence to catch fish and other things, but also to find out where things are, to see things. What we would use for a flashlight, or British call it torch, you use to see things at night in the dark. But it's not just fish. Remember I told you that those of you who've been here for a while, there was an expedition after mine. A few weeks after I finished my expedition, went back to the United States, 2 other Americans, not Beach and Marcy, 2 different Americans, Garth Gessman and David Wetzel, they started their expedition. It was on the same island I was on, Umboy Island. The natives call it Siasi. Many years ago in World War II, they called it Rook Island, R-O-O-K-E, but hardly anybody uses that word anymore, I think. Umboy Island, and they discovered something incredible. The natives showed them these huge shells, the giant clams shells, that were not at the beach, but they were dragged up by someone or something way up into the island, into the island interior, and they were not used by the natives. The natives wouldn't drag them way up in the interior. They had no reason to do that. But they said that the Ropen took them up there. The Ropen took the giant clams up into the mountain to eat the meat of it. And I see no reason to doubt that. I mean, it doesn't make much sense that the natives would do such an incredible thing as drag these heavy clams way up into the jungle interior and then claim that the Ropen did it and they didn't do it. That makes no sense. If they did something incredible, they would use it for something, and then they would take the credit for it. Oh, I did this. I did this great work of dragging this way up into the island. They say it's a Ropen. I believe them. I have no reason to doubt them. Possibly when Rex was out in the daytime, he was just extremely lucky when the Ropen happened to be out in the daytime. It's the exception with the Ropen. But on the island that people, let me get back to this here with the video footage of this animal. This is not a Ropen. It does not have a long tail. It is not always nocturnal. It is not, perhaps even mostly nocturnal. It might sometimes come out at night, but people see it in the daytime more than they do the Ropens in the daytime on a nearby island. I was never on New Britain. I got to see it from a distance. as we were coming the ship into Lab on the coast of Humboldt Island, I did get to see the part of the coast of New Britain, but I never set foot on that island. It's huge, gigantic island. Well, nothing like the mainland of New Guinea, which is one of the biggest islands in the world, but it's still a very big island. Okay. So we can take this any way you like. The value I see in this sighting in the year 2015 by Milt Marcy and Peter Beach was in this, what the two Americans saw with their eyes, not with the recording that they got from the video, which is horrible quality. But you can say at least there's nothing magical about modern pterosaurs, pterodactyls, that you can't videotape them. You can. It's just that people are usually in such a shock that they don't get it. I'll give you an example. Now, I know some of you have heard this before, but this is what happens for generations, for decades, since we've had cameras. In 1944, on the mainland of New Guinea, before there was a country of Papua New Guinea, it was still called New Guinea, and it was controlled by the Australians. In 1944, the Japanese had already left that part of that big island. So there was no combat there at that time when the Americans were there at Finch Haven, which is on the coast of the eastern coast of New Guinea. And Dwayne Hodgkinson and his army buddy wanted to go up and explore and see the village and see what the natives were like. And they took a camera, a military camera with them. They got permission. This is done properly, got proper military permission to go on this hike up there. And they got some Australian official, got a native guide to help them to lead them up there. So they went on the trail. They stopped in this jungle clearing, which is about 100 feet in diameter. And as they were on one side of the clearing, look at these huge giant ants, which they don't have those size ants in the United States. They were mesmerized, these incredible ants. And they heard some noise, and they looked where the noise came in, and they saw it was a wild pig that had got startled, and it ran through that area of the clearing. And then something else happened right at that time. Apparently that wild pig woke up something else. In fact, that's exactly what happened. On the other side of the clearing, which would be fairly close, because the clearing itself is just 100 feet or so in diameter, the other side of the clearings, something started running and flapping its wings to get airborne. And at the very first, they took a look at it. Dwayne Hodgkinson just assumed it was a bird because it was flapping its wings as it was running. But then he very quickly realized that was no bird. It was a pterodactyl, as he called it. Gigantic size. We now call it a ropen, but he could see this horn-like structure. And as you look, you see the image here. This is probably somehow related, not necessarily the same species, but what Dwayne Hodgkinson saw, I'm pretty sure, was related to this, if not the same species, a ropen. And he was fascinated by it. He said that it's just mind-blowing. It just started running, and they saw it running. His feet were, running because it's trying to get airborne, but the tail was held behind it. He did not concentrate on the tail, so he couldn't tell us afterwards with the interviews that we gave for him, in more recent years. He couldn't tell us whether or not it had a structure at the end of the tail because he was concentrating on the head. That treated like, see the horn sticking out of my head here? Whoa, look at that horn. He was concentrating on that, mesmerized by that. But he did, when he was asked directly in the interview in which he was videotaped, and we have, I think, a great video on this on my other channel, Jonathan Whitcomb. A great video on this. 250,000 people have viewed that video. But he was asked a question, how long was the tail? And he thought about it for a while, and he says, well, I guess at least 10 or 15 feet. Well, taking into account the possibility he's mistaken, an animal with a tail 10 or 15 feet long, that's not any kind of bird known to science. It's not any kind of bat. A flying fox fruit bat has practically no tail. You don't see the tail. It's so tiny, you don't even notice it unless you're looking at it, and holding it and putting it up in front of your face, saying, oh, there's maybe a little tiny little thing of a tail. But it's not a misidentified flying fruit bat that would look like it has a long tail 10 or 15 feet long, no. And interesting to note, at least 10 or 15 feet long. On my expedition in Papua New Guinea, I interviewed a man, 3 men actually, who were eyewitnesses. One of them said he estimated the tail length at 7 meters. 7 meters. 7 meters is 23 feet. So it's not just an American World War II veteran that was saying that these pterodactyls had extremely long tails. It was also a native who never heard about that World War II veteran. We better get back to see what the chat is happening here. Yeah, Ben One, thanks for sharing. I'll definitely check out your other channel. The account of the creature flying under the water sounds with its tail exposed sounds really crazy. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Weird. But it happened, and once in a while the ropeman will come out in daytime for whatever reason. But I can tell you something. I know I mentioned this before, but it's important for the aspect of anyone going to Umboy Island to search for the ropeman is there is a way that you have a chance of seeing this huge modern pterosaur on Umboy Island if you really want to in the daytime. There's a way that you can do that, but it takes patience still, and you'd have to have some luck. If you have bad luck, then forget it. But here's what you do. You go up into the interior, and you have to go through all the things that are involved with giving gifts to the village leaders and getting their trust and friendship so that they'll give you permission to go up into the jungle in their area of their village, which they claim belongs to them. Whether or not it does legally, I don't know. But they claim it's their jungle, so you have to get permission. Then you get to Lake Pung, which is a good hike. You have to be there in the daytime as early as possible in the morning, but when the sun is up, you just stand on the shore, get your cameras ready. Everybody with you that has a camera, get the cameras ready to record, and you yell as loud as you can. You just start yelling and yelling and yelling for a few seconds and then stop. And then you wait with your cameras ready. Probably what will happen next is nothing. Nothing will happen, probably. Okay. Keep fairly ready. Keep the cameras ready and wait a while. Just explore, walk around with your cameras ready. And then a little later in the morning, yell again. Scream, everybody scream at the same time for a few seconds, then stop. Cameras ready. Probably what happened will be nothing. Wait a few hours later, do the same thing, repeat it. Camp out there if you don't have a sighting that day. And if you do it the next day, maybe another day, eventually what could happen is if you're patient enough, you'll be there in the lake in the daytime. You need to be there in the daytime. Camera's ready, and you yell. Everybody yells, and then you stop yelling and you wait a few seconds, and then something different will happen. The ropeman, probably gigantic ropeman, will fly over the lake, and you'll get to have this wonderful video footage of a gigantic modern pterosaur. That's what could happen if you're lucky, even then. How do I know that? Because it's happened before, not exactly like that, but that kind of thing has happened to the best of my knowledge and understanding. There were 7 boys that went up around 1994, maybe late in the year 1993, and they just decided they were, if I understand or remember, they're about 11 to 14 years old, something in that. And these 7 boys, native boys, went up there to this crater lake, Pung, P-U-N-G, and within minutes of when they were there, the gigantic ropeman flew low over the lake, scared them silly. They just ran home terrified. extremely scared. And I interviewed 3 of them on camera. I videotaped them while I interviewed them during my expedition in 2004. And for years, I didn't think much about it. I thought, well, it does seem kind of strange. Why would they be so lucky or unlucky in their perspective? How did it happen that they just went up to this crater lake and a nocturnal flying creature came out just minutes after they arrived? And finally, it dawned on me. I'm not a genius. It takes time for me to realize these things. It dawned on me. Of course, these are young teenagers, or almost teenagers, when they got there to see this incredible lake. Beautiful. It's a gorgeous lake. You ought to see the photos of this. It's beautiful. Other videos, I have photos of it. They got there. They probably were just so excited to be this incredible place that they're just running along the shore by the lake, yelling and making noise. That's what happened. That's why, within minutes of their arrival, the roper decided to fly over the lake in the daytime, in the middle of the day. A nocturnal animal. I know it's speculation, but it's pretty good. For speculation, I think it's pretty good. I think I'm correct. So that's how you do it. Now, getting back to this sighting in 1944, how is that related? Okay, we'll get to some of these things too. In 1944, they had this amazing sighting. They saw the creature fly off, and these 2 American soldiers saw the creature fly up out of view. And as they were talking about, what was that? It came back in the opposite direction, perhaps to look and to see what was going on, to see what it was in the clearing. Came back right over the clearing. They got a perfect side view of it. And then it went off and it was out of sight again. So in a sense, you could say, well, that's 2 sightings. I don't count that technically in my view. I don't count it as 2 sightings. I just count it as 1 sighting in which the animal was obstructed for a short time. I would count it as 1 sighting. But anyway, regardless of technical detail, it was out of sight. Then those 2 Americans remembered they were carrying a military camera. Yeah. Guess what? For decades now, since that happened, people all over the world have been having the same thing happen. They see a modern pterodactyl, they're in shock, and they're just mesmerized. Then it's out of view, and then they realize, oh, my cell phone, or oh, I have a camera nearby, and then they remember. It's human nature. That's what happens. Okay, let's get to this. I thought they just glided. The video showed it flapping. All right. Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. This Matt got some Viking. Okay. Thank you for joining us. I thought they just glided. Well, not actually. A lot of the sightings indicate that gliding is very common. That doesn't mean that they just glide, of course. It's not like some oceanic birds or like the California condor or the Andean condor that have almost all their time gliding. They do, in fact, the birds too do just their wings. What was said in the description by the biologist Peter Beach, he said that it was gliding, but there was some wing movement. Yeah, I don't think he called it flapping. It was a wing movement which allowed the creature to change direction and so on. I don't call that flapping, and I don't think the biologist called that flapping. Is what he was observing. Anyway, that's call it what you want. How many do you think are left? I have no idea, not the slightest idea. I can tell you about this number of sightings. To the best of my knowledge and understanding, there are about 6 billion people on the Earth, a little bit more now. We keep multiplying, but this is 6 billion or plus. And of all those people on the face of the Earth, the number who have had some kind of encounter with a modern pterosaur at some time in their human lifetimes, all those persons, 6 billion, the number of persons have had some kind of contact with the animal is roughly between 7 million and 128 million persons. That's a lot of encounters people have had. But most of those are worthless from my perspective in terms of research because they're poor, very poor, very brief, vague kind of encounters that don't help us at all. The more important ones are the ones where people have a good enough view where they can be really sure that it was like pterodactyl or whatever they want to call it, dragon, or they saw that it's not a bird. For the United States, the really good sightings couldn't be less than about 300,000. 300,000 Americans who've had a really good sighting of the modern pterosaur. That's kind of the absolute minimum. You can't have less than 300,000 Americans having a good sighting of a pterosaur, or you wouldn't have the type of sighting reports we have where people see like, for example, Cynthia Lee in Raleigh, North Carolina. And she saw more than once she's seen one because she's looking for them now. After her first sighting, she really kept her eyes open in Raleigh, North Carolina. But she says her mother and her uncle, when they were children, when those two persons were children, they had a sighting of their own. And other people in North Carolina have seen the same thing, modern pterosaurs. And people sometimes will report to me like that. They've had the pterosaur sighting and they know somebody else who's had a sighting. Not necessarily family, it can be a friend. And it just keeps on happening over and over and over. You cannot have less than 0.1% of the Americans with a good sighting and have those kind of reports because it just doesn't add up. It can't be. But because it's less than 1%, apparently, that if you have a sighting, you tell somebody, a friend, probably that friend does not have a sighting. Unless you tell a lot of people, then you will eventually find somebody that does. But 1 in 1,000, you have 1,000 friends and relatives? Maybe not. You have 1,000 people you can trust? Maybe not. You have one person you can trust. I had one lady, she reported to me her sighting, and then she said that she told her mother, and her mother thought she was crazy. Oh, if your mother thinks you're crazy, who are you going to tell? Where are you going to go? Not to the police. They'll really think you're crazy, but it's a problem we have in our culture. That's a challenge. So, with all these sightings, I wonder where's all the videos or photos at all. Photos at, it's mostly because just people are in shock and they don't think about it. I know one man in the Midwest, it might have been Ohio or somewhere close to there. This is years ago. He contacted me. He said he had a sighting of the pterodactyl flying off, and he had an idea of running in the house and get his camera. But as soon as he got that idea, he came to the opinion, the idea came to him, by the time he got back with the camera, the thing would be out of view. And sure enough, as he was watching it, very soon it was out of view, so it wouldn't have helped. I've had another sighting of a lady that was driving and had an incredible sighting with her family, with 1 or 2 family members, her children. Incredible sighting. She said she wished she had a camera, but she said even if she had a camera, she would not be able to take a photo of it because she was driving and she couldn't deal with the camera at that time. I'll tell you something happened to me. I take cameras with me when I go on vacation or trip to see my family in Oregon. And I was driving with my wife, and we were traveling along the gorge with the Columbia River, traveling from Utah to Oregon. And as we were traveling, my wife saw up in the sky a huge flying creature. She thought it was a ropen or pterodactyl. And she knew about my research, of course. We'd been together, we're married for decades, and so many decades, and she didn't tell me. You know why? She didn't say anything. She just kept watching it. I'm the #1 expert in the world, or at least the one with the most experience in hours on it, if I'm not the most intelligent necessarily. But and this is my wife, and she doesn't tell me, or she's watching a pterodactyl when I'm driving? Why do you think she didn't tell me? Well, she didn't want the two of us to go over the cliff and die after I crashed the car. That's why. It's not safe. So she waited till after we arrived at our destination. Then she told me about what she saw. She's not positive it was a pterodactyl or pterosaur or ropin, but it was so big she doesn't know what else it could be. Okay. Okay. I wonder where they live or sleep. Well, yeah, this is a good question, but remember, it's a very general question. These are a number of species that live all over the planet. Do you want me to tell you some of the places that people have contacted me from? Just off the top of my head, several countries in Africa, a number of countries in Africa, and Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, England, the Caribbean, people on a cruise, two incredibly important sightings in Cuba, and hundreds of sightings in the United States, and then sightings in Mexico. I've received reports from Canada over and over and over again, Hawaii, the islands of Pacific, many from Australia, Papua New Guinea, of course, many of them, and sighting reports from people contacting me, directly, the eyewitnesses themselves, Philippines, Singapore. It just goes on and on. It's just all across the planet. So many sightings. So these are different species. We can't find any skeletons. Well, I'm sure people found skeletons. I mean, why would they not find skeletons? I think be careful about that, assuming, well, if someone found a skeleton, be careful of your line of assumptions that you think, well, somebody finds a skeleton, they'll see and recognize that it's a pterodactyl. They'll pick it up, which I don't know if I'd do that. Pick it up no matter what condition, take it to somebody else, and that person they would get it to a professor of biology in a university. So, no, you're going through all these assumptions and that people even recognize what it is. So it could be a lot of people find skeletons, but in general, I wouldn't count too much on that kind of thing as if for evidence against the animals living in modern times, because the skeletons in remote areas, for example, they just decay. I can tell you, after 12 months in a forest in central Yosemite area of California, Central California, and my family and we dug up what we knew were bones, and we knew exactly what we measured. We knew exactly where the bones were buried of these little creatures that we'd buried. And none of the bones were found. Not one bone was found. Everything was gone. It was all gone. Nature kind of gets rid of remains of dead things. They just disappear. They're eaten, they're decomposed, and so on. But part of that about skeletons of pterosaurs is just basically, even if you happen to find one, would you happen to be a person that knows about modern pterosaur researchers, like my associates and I do? Would you happen to know about it? Probably not. And if you, so why would you think that there's something unusual about it, some dead thing? It's something, but it's not generally something people like to pick up. Yuck. But I'm sure people have seen them before. But they're not that. The animals themselves are not common. We have to understand this too. The sightings are in the hundreds of thousands, but the animals themselves are not necessarily that much. Let's see. Somebody made a comment here on somewhere, but it's a Google Chrome comment. Let's see if I can learn something. Somebody just gave me a comment here. I want to find out if I can help with this. Okay. Yeah, mountain caves, possibly. We need to be aware that we have a lot of people that have been on that recently too. Let's get back to this. Mountain caves is a possibility. We have some areas where they seem to live in caves, and they're reported like on Umboy Island. The natives use the word cave in a different way, you know. You have to be aware of that. Not necessarily meaning a limestone cave. What we usually think of as a cave, indentation in the cliff, perhaps. Some people call it a cave. But it could be in Umboy Island in Papua New Guinea. I wonder if there's scavengers in Congo. Yeah, probably have some in the Congo. I wonder if they're scavengers. Yeah, they are somewhat. Some of them are scavengers. They have a number of accounts of that, including in the United States, roadkill, going for roadkill, yeah. And on Umboy Island in recent years and decades, though, they don't dig up human bodies like they used to. The rope in there anyway, that one. No, that was a long time ago when I interviewed somebody. Sorry, I have a post-nasal drip. When I interviewed an old man who had been there, and he'd seen a rope and rob a grave at nighttime in Gumlagon Village, and that was in 1949. And the ropeman took the body out and carried it away. It was just buried in leaves. Well, leaves are not going to protect you from a scavenger. So it took it away. But in recent years, people bury the human bodies in wooden caskets, so ropeman can't get to them so well. I wonder if there are scavengers. Can they be colorful, or are they all just brown? Well, there's an exception with the coloration. I'll tell you about this. I very rarely mention this because it's an outlier. In terms of statistics, the appearance and the coloration is an outlier, but there was one place in Texas where this little boy was in his backyard, and this pterodactyl thing came down. It was hovering, just flying a little above the ground. It had a long tail. It was close enough that if he wanted to, he could have tried to grab the tail, but he's later is glad he didn't try that. It would probably be a big mistake. But he said it was colorful with this kind of stripe-like orange and black stripes. So this coloration of orange and black, that's the exception. That's probably a very rare modern pterosaur. That's extremely unusual. Generally, they're kind of bland coloring, sometimes lighter color, sometimes darker. A lot of them are darker, but there's a variations in coloring. And I could get statistics sometime. I probably should. But we need to remember they're different species. Do you think animals prey on them? Oh, prey on the flying creatures. Well, I don't usually get that. That's a good question. I'd have to think about. I'll tell you some things that I've learned. One case of a sighting in Lakewood, California, where the lady the dog was barking, and she came out from under her gazebo in the middle of the day, good weather, came out and looked to see what the dog was barking about in Lakewood, California, Los Angeles County. And right above her head was this, what she called a dragon pterodactyl thing, huge wings, and the long tail, the end of the tail was only about like 18 feet from her forehead, but the creature was just perched there while the dog was barking. The creature was just perched there, not paying any attention to the dog, perhaps. But as soon as the lady came out there and said something, then the creature was scared and it flew away into a tree. Then it was scared. It's apparently some of these flying creatures, some of these ropens are not afraid of dogs, but they do not like people. They keep away from people. I don't know about animals eating them. I don't know. Maybe a large eagle might prey on smaller ones. Sure, that's very possible. It could be. that's just the natural way. But generally, it's the other way around. The eagles do not like modern pterosaurs because the ropens can often be so much bigger than an eagle. And I have one account just within the last year or two in which somebody saw one chasing an eagle. It was chasing an eagle. And some of these ropens, they do apparently prey on birds. They've been seen catching one, for example. On more than one occasion, I've gotten that. They do prey on birds. Not necessarily catching them. There's one big one in Irvine, California, was chasing a bunch of birds in the middle of the day, but it was gigantic, but the birds were flying faster than it was, so it probably never caught any. That's another story anyway. So thank you for all of you that are here. We need to keep going with this. We have a good number here. Yeah, still got a good number. We need to get back, for those of you who are new, and see this video footage of a modern pterosaur that was recorded in the year 2015 on New Britain Island, which is one of the larger islands in Papua New Guinea. And this is by the two Americans, Peter Beach and Milt Marcy. I know both of them. Honest men. I've spent a lot of time with them on a long excursion one day in the United States, where there have been sightings of a modern pterosaur. And they showed me the sighting location and what they experienced, what they saw there. But they went on an expedition to Papua New Guinea. I don't know why. That's so expensive to go there. They went there instead of just keep searching in the United States. But they had friends that were involved there, missionaries there, and they wanted to just go to explore. They like to explore things like that. They've been in Africa before with something similar. So they went there, and they had bad luck with how it went. They got the camera turned on, and Peter Beach was sick, and he got out of his sick bed to go in the middle of the day, point his camera up almost toward the sun, and he was not prepared well. He's not a professional camera operator. He's not a wildlife photographer. They didn't have one on their expedition, which cost a lot of money, which they didn't have that much money, I'm sure. They couldn't have done it if they found somebody. But they did get this footage, so they did get some recording of it. But really what's important about this sighting there in that tropical island in the Southwest Pacific in the year 2014 is that these two Americans got a clear view with their eyes, much better than what we can see in this video footage. Much better. They could see with their eyes the characteristics are very unlike a bird. It wasn't a bird. Let me quote again. Quote, "The animal we saw, it was a pterosaur and flew not like a bird," unquote. Those are the words of the person with the camera who was a biologist. That's what he said. And then another time he described certain characteristics in detail. I'm sorry I don't have that in front of me here. This is the busy week I've had, but at least we got this. So for those who are new, welcome. I'm Jonathan Whitcomb. This is Protect Animal Life is the channel on YouTube, and also there's another channel on YouTube by my name, Jonathan Whitcomb, and I just uploaded a new video on there, but it's not for general audiences like yourself. It's more a promotional for a particular government official in Papua New Guinea who we're asking to help support an expedition that's going on right now by Rex Yappy, and we need support from the government. So that's what that video is about. But this where we are now is the channel Protect Animal Life. That's not the title. This is my contact page so that you can get in touch with me, send me emails. I've been so busy I haven't been answering my emails lately. Sorry about that. If you've been trying to contact me, I will get to them. But this has been a hectic week. Trying to get in touch with this very important government official in Papua New Guinea. Haven't been able to yet, but anyway, I hope we get support for this expedition from the government, at least for this particular government official. So this is the actual URL to get to my Protect Animal Life main page, and this is Milt Marcy and Peter Beach when I was with them, interviewing them on their excursion that we had in the United States years ago. And here's some of the books that we have. This is one of my books that's more popular in live pterosaurs in America. So let's see. I also need to mention that ropin in North America, the American hammerhead ropin, generally when people see this and they report it to me, it's not a misidentification. Now, I know there can be exceptions. I'm just telling you the general rule. When somebody contacts me, they say they've seen whatever they call it, pterodactyl, dragon, flying dinosaur, whatever they call it. If they describe it in these terms about the head crest and so on, no feathers, and some of them actually see teeth in the beak, obviously not birds, but it's not a great blue heron. It is just not. Some of the persons, of course, one of the persons that reported to me is actually a bird watcher, and she knows birds. What she saw was the size of an airplane. It was not a bird. So, not misidentified shoebill crane, which generally is found almost only in certain areas of Central Africa, doesn't usually travel much. And those would not count for sightings all over the world of the ropin. Wingspan estimates show there's not any mistaken misidentification. The wingspan estimates would not come from misidentifications. We had another video on this, and you can look for that. But basically, people are not playing jokes or hoaxes, and they're not misidentifying. They're actually seeing living pterosaurs. So, we need to get back to the chat, see what's happening. Still have a good number of viewers here. Let's keep going. Any good comments? Sorry, Miss, I tried looking for the picture. Okay, understand. Yeah. Okay, good luck with that, Ven One. Good luck. Come back to me so I can share it with you. Okay. Yeah, good luck with that. Anybody else want to make any comment or question, please feel free. I'm not sure how this works with cell phones or other devices, but if you can make a comment, please feel free to do so. I've been doing this investigation of my own in cryptozoology for 17.5 years. As far as I know, I've spent more time on this and hours of work and research and so on than any other person on the face of the earth. So I have a lot of things I can rely on, a lot of reports. People send me emails and occasionally a telephone call, usually emails from around the world. So I have hundreds of accounts directly from the eyewitnesses. And I've been publishing a lot online and in books and so on, in a scientific paper in a peer-reviewed journal of science. I am a scientist. You won't hear that much from my critics and skeptics. They don't like to mention that, but I am a scientist. So what about this idea that maybe they live in caves? That's possible in some areas. What I have to deal with is where the sighting is and what information people have, because there are caves all over the world. James Platt, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time here, James, I don't recognize your name, so if you're here, delighted you've joined us. Do you think they eat fish out of large lakes, and if so, that would be a good idea to set up camera traps like they do for Nessie? Oh yeah, sure, that's possible. But then again, you have to deal with a particular area. Is it someplace where you can set up a camera without somebody stealing the camera? You know, you have to keep that in mind. And again, they're mostly nocturnal in general. They're nocturnal. And how would you know which lake that they would be going to on any particular night or any particular week when you have the camera out? That's another question. But yeah, that's possible. If you have to have the night vision enabled, and you'd have to. I think it might be good to camp out with your camera if you can. But particular if you know that this is something that they regularly go to, a particular lake or river where they regularly go to. But then you have the problem, too, with the river. What part of the river will they be in at any particular night? And I know the situation with game cameras. I've been through this before with Southern California, where I set up a game camera. Well, I thought it was a good location. Incredible sighting there with this lady in Lakewood. Was it right in the middle of the day? The dragon pterodactyl, she called it, the end of the tail, just 18 feet above her forehead, you know. It's incredible sighting. So I set up the game camera best possible place I thought it would be. And after 14 months, it's over a year, 14 months, I examined thousands and thousands of photos over those 14 months, and not one of them looked like a pterodactyl. I'm afraid it was probably because the camera I had, it had this particular thing. It would snap a picture about 1.5 to 2.5 seconds or so after it was triggered. So if something was to fly and land or walk past the camera, it would take a picture. Like, that's called a deer camera, you know. It's made for deers, you know. But if something is flying past quickly, like through the storm channel nearby and flying right through it, which I believe that one or more ropens are still doing that, and they did it at the time, the game camera would turn on and snap a picture after the thing was gone. That's a lot of work I was doing on that. Got some interesting pictures of birds and rats at night, but yeah. Okay. Set up trail cam pointed at a suspicious hole. Yeah, that's how I've done that before. See what wildlife crawls in and out. Yeah, I've done that. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying it's a waste of time. It's just that, you know, be prepared for disappointment. It can happen. Things can go wrong, and it could be the wrong place. But I say, the more information you get, the better. I guessed wrong in my case years ago in Southern California, and so I had 14 months of work that didn't give me any photograph of a ropin', but I got good eyewitness accounts. So if you can, sure. I don't want you to risk somebody stealing your camera, though. You know, be aware of that possibility. If you can kind of avoid that, that would be great. And be prepared for the long run. You know, I spent 14 months. Be prepared for the long haul. And also remember, they're mostly nocturnal for most of the time. That doesn't mean that they never come out. People generally see them in the daytime. The average typical sighting would be in the daytime. That's because humans see better. We don't have night vision like owls or other animals, cats, and so we don't see well at night. So we need to have the trail camera, game camera, such that it can do some recordings at night. It can be triggered at night, and it can be taking photographs in that mode. A lot of modern game cameras do have that, I suspect. But yeah, just be sure that that's the case, so you're prepared for the nighttime. That Ropin' Radio channel is very good. It has eyewitness interviews that discuss what they saw. Oh yeah, Ropin' channel. I think Uncanny Valley, welcome. Glad you're here again. Uncanny Valley has been here before. Yeah, I think you're referring to the Ropin' Radio Network. That's great. I was interviewed by them just a few weeks ago. I enjoyed that interview a lot. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I recommend them. Ropin' Radio Network. Wall gauge cam with infrared illuminator for the win. Yeah, watch from that Ropin' Network video you recommended a few days ago. Nicely done interview with the illustrations and actual voice of eyewitness. I subscribed to. Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, occasionally I'm interviewed usually for radio podcast, online interviews and so on. So over the years, I have occasionally been interviewed for television, though that hasn't worked out too well as far as getting it actually online. I mean, actually on the air, I should say. I was interviewed 2 times for television productions that did go through, Destination Truth and Monster Quest, but it was not official. I was not on camera for those. And I didn't even get credit for it. I was just unofficially giving them advice and so on, consulting with them before their expeditions in Papua New Guinea for those episodes that did make good television episodes. But we should go into that sometime, and we'll talk about details of what happened with those Destination Truth and Monster Quest a number of years ago, and how I was involved with the preparations for that, and mainly about what actually happened. We should get into that with one of these live streams, shouldn't we? Because I have some things I could share with you on that. Then one said, this is the one flying along the river. Photoshop? Okay, I don't know. Flying around along the river. I know one photograph, or probably fake photograph, that seems to show a pterodactyl flying along a river. I know one like that. I'm almost positive it's a hoax. And Photoshop can be used to make those kind of things. Excuse me. Uncanny Valley. I also came across an article that discussed research that suggested photophorescence was possibly quite common among dinosaurs, maybe even ubiquitous. Oh, I don't know. Uncanny Valley. I don't know about that. That's interesting. Can't show link. Sorry. Okay, that's something else from Ven 1. Well, I did mention in my scientific paper about bioluminescence and about the statistics about when the light is seen flying from the coast or the reef inland, and what times it's seen flying the opposite direction from inland toward the water, toward the sea. And it did correlate with the concept that the flying creature comes out at night to go down after sunset, to go down to the water to catch fish, and then before the sun comes up to come back in. It did correlate in my scientific paper. I'll post it in the comments when the video is published. So thank you, Uncanny Valley. Thank you so much. Stargirl Lush, hey, this is the first time you're here. I don't recognize that name. Thank you very much for being here. I've seen one in Durham, North Carolina. Oh, super. Off Roxborough Road early in the morning. I am a sane woman that was just heading to the gym to run and saw it flying over the road in front of me. Thank you so much, Stargirl Lush. And you're not the first one that's contacted me about a sighting in Durham, North Carolina. Probably a lot of the viewers never heard of Durham, North Carolina, but it's an important city. Isn't that the place where there's a important university there, if I'm not mistaken? A very important university. It's very old. But anyway, if I'm remembering right. Yeah, we have so many sighting reports in North Carolina. I've done 2 videos just on sightings in North Carolina. My mom sent me this live so I can share. Oh, great. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to keep this up tonight. We'll keep going because we have things to talk about. Ben, one pterosaur caught on camera in New Guinea. This is the title on the Daily Motion platform. Okay, thank you. A lot of things I've seen on YouTube are hoaxes, unfortunately. Some of them are not. Mine, of course, I never play hoaxes. I've been devoted my life for 17 and a half years to the research, and I'm not going to play hoaxes. But unfortunately, the ones that seem to be the most impressive are generally are the ones that are probably hoaxes. I wish it were otherwise, but I used to work and have my little video production place with animation, including a little bit of 3D animation, a tiny bit. So I know how hoaxes can be done. I know how to do it myself. If I was dishonest, I would have been doing this years ago, making hoaxes with showing pterodactyls flying when they're just, I made it in my computer. I could have been done that. Anyway, Uncanny Valley said, it also said that predators were likely nocturnal, and I came across pterodons, which would probably mean pteranodons, having features associated with venom glands in their jaw. I saw something about that. Yeah, that's interesting. Wouldn't be surprised. Some modern pterosaurs are very dangerous. They don't have to be very large. Be careful. They don't have to be large enough to carry you away to be dangerous. There's things that they can do that are not in biology textbooks, and they're live animals today, and they can be dangerous. So keep your distance. Stargirl Lush, it was unmistakable. I tried debunking as I watched it fly, but it had the diamond tail and was huge, bigger than the local herons and other kinds of birds. Very interesting stuff. Ah, okay. So, let's keep on going here. We have many eyewitnesses. I need to repeat something I said earlier for those who are coming in new. From my many years of research, investigation, including hundreds of sightings I've gotten directly from eyewitnesses in the United States, because of a number of factors, and I mentioned this a little earlier this evening, I've come to the conclusion that the number of Americans now living who've had a really good sighting of a modern pterosaur at some time in the human life, in these persons' lifetimes, has to be at least 300,000 Americans. That sounds incredible, shocking. I know it sounds crazy beyond description. I know. I understand. But I'm a scientist, and I have to deal with numbers, and the numbers just don't make sense if there were less than 300,000 Americans that had a very good sighting. The numbers I get just don't make sense. It could be up to 1 million, but not less than 300,000. That means for a typical eyewitness in the United States, and we live in a culture where people just assume, oh, they all became extinct millions and millions and millions of years ago. Every single species, of dinosaur and pterosaur, all extinct. That's not scientific. I'm a scientist. I promise you, that is not a scientific concept, not a scientific idea. The general concept, I grant, dinosaurs and pterosaurs in general are extinct. Yeah, that's just a general statement. But not to say every single species of them has to be extinct and not have any living descendants that are anything like them. That's not scientific. But anyway, if you're a typical eyewitness, get back to this. You see what looks like a pterodactyl, and you're trying to figure out what it is, and you're so in shock that you don't even think to get your cell phone out to take a photograph or video. And you're just in shock until it's gone, trying to figure out, how did I see a flying dinosaur? It's impossible. What happened? Am I going crazy? Sometimes people actually ask that sort of thing. What happened? Could it possibly have been some kind of bird that somehow just looked totally different than any bird? And that is a sighting. If you go to your friends and family and your neighbors and just tell everybody you know that you saw a pterodactyl, you have a problem. The problem is it's under 1% of Americans have seen one, so it's quite possible you won't find anybody in your family or friends that has seen one too. Quite likely. Or if they heard about it, they'd forgotten, or if they know someone else that's seen one, they'd forgotten about it until maybe a couple of days later, and then they'll call you and say, oh, I remember, I know somebody that saw one too. But I have to get back to the report, the comments here. We need to get to the comments. Thank you for everybody who's here. Okay. And Stargirl Lush, it was unmistakable. I tried debunking it. Okay. Then one, thanks, Mr. Whitcomb. I have subscribed to your other channel. Great. Got to get to bed late here. Okay, I understand. Thanks for your time and all your hard work. Bye-bye, everyone. See you later, Ven One. And I'm getting eye strain here, which is causing coughing. Eye strain and eye watering. Causes postnasal drip, sorry. And Ven One says, thank you, Mr. Whitcomb. Okay, I see I said that. In Kenny Valley, crocodiles survived. I wondered if maybe the fact that dinos went extinct was because they were warm-blooded, as only cold-blooded reptiles and warm-blooded mammals seem to have survived. Oh, I don't know. I don't really get into that kind of speculation in Kenny Valley. I just deal with the present, and see what I can learn about these flying creatures. Stargirl, what did it look like? Okay, that's A-Rox asks Stargirl the question of what did it look like. Good question. We have more than one species. The most common is the ropen. At one time, when I started doing calculations, adding up numbers, and I found that it's almost pretty close to a 20-to-1 ratio of long tails to those that don't have long tails. Now, it's not quite as much now, I don't think, as that. I haven't added it up lately, but it's still a clear dominance of ropens in comparison with the modern pterosaurs that do not have any long tail. But the non-long tail ones are still real. They are real animals. They're just not as common. And we have a number of sightings in North America and also in Southwest Pacific that show that clearly. But for the most part, people generally see ropen, and many of them see a flange at the end of the tail. They might call it a diamond shape. Or some persons in the United States, it's kind of called a spade shape or a ball shape. If you're from Ohio, that's a common way they say a ball at the end of the tail. I don't know why in Ohio they more likely call it a ball, and somewhere else they call it a spade or a triangle or diamond. But anyway, Stargirl lushes. It was a dark color, not black though. The tail was long. It wasn't like the feet of a heron that hangs from the back. This tail was very long with a diamond at the end. It glides in the air. Yeah, that's very common. It's a ropen. Probably, I don't know, so I say probably. It's quite likely it could have been an American hammerhead ropen, which, where is the picture of that I have somewhere? American hammerhead ropen, if I can get out of the way. This is a sketch drawn by Patty Carson according to her sighting. And it has a particular shape of the head crest and the beak like that, and teeth in the beak. Yeah, but anyway, it was some kind of ropen. Stargirl Lush, you probably saw some kind of ropen, which is, in my opinion, and the opinion of my associates, in general, my associates, who do this kind of work. It's descended from some species of rhamphorhynchoid pterosaur that lived in the past. Not necessarily a Sortus pilosus, but some of them seem to be possibly related to Sortus pilosus. And Stargirl Lush says that's exactly what it looked like. Oh, really? Okay, listen to this, everybody. Let me get back to this Stargirl Lush. That's exactly what it looked like. You're talking about this, right, Stargirl Lush? Let me get out of the way. It looks like that. Yeah, the American hammerhead ropen. That's the name I gave to it. It's not scientific. You won't find this in a textbook. Yeah, interesting. Let me get out of the way this way. Yeah, I love this sketch. Unfortunately, Patty Carson passed away a few years ago. She had a health problem. I didn't know it was so serious, and I hadn't talked with her for a while, and then suddenly I got this message on Facebook that her funeral, I think, and I said, didn't know she had that serious a health problem. She was a lot younger than me. Let's get back to the chat. And I missed something, so let me get to something else here on my computer screen. And Stargirl Lush says, yes, absolutely, that's it. Super. Uncanny Valley. One of the witnesses on rope and radio reported one with a forward-facing crest, which is consistent with the fossil record and not something someone would guess or make up. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. Stargirl Lush, I'm flabbergasted. Hope someone can come around to check out the area. So this is, can you tell us again where this is, Stargirl Lush? Because I don't, my short-term memory is not that good. Is this the one in Durham, North Carolina, or is this, am I confusing you with some other eyewitness? I deal with so many hundreds of eyewitnesses, I have to be careful. I confuse people. But there are many sightings in North Carolina, and tonight is not the first time that I've learned about a sighting in Durham, North Carolina. Not the first time at all. Maybe the third time, but definitely not the first time. So yeah, I mean, if it's something recent, I have an associate, one or two associates in that area that might be able to come out. Roxborough Road, Durham, North Carolina. I don't recall Stargirl Lush. Is this recent? I don't recall if you mentioned this. Is it very recently you saw it? Uncanny Valley, try to get your hands on a decent camera. Well, there's a chance you might see it again. True. That's a good point. Good point. Lots of woods there. Wide Gaze, thanks for sharing your encounter. Thank you indeed. Delighted. This is wonderful. So awesome indeed. I love these live stream chats. We get people here that I've never talked to before that have had sightings. This is wonderful. This was about a year ago before the pandemic. Oh, yeah. That's how I remember things somewhat too. Before pandemic and you know, because you can remember if people have masks on or not, you know. You can get the photos really clear on what year it was sometimes anyway. Yeah, so the point is, even though it was more than a year ago, don't assume that it's gone or that same animal won't come back. I mean, these things are all over North Carolina, and they just get these sightings come up over and over again, including Durham, North Carolina. Okay. I didn't know who to contact. Yeah, I told my mother, and she told my mother, and she connected me to you. Thank you very much. Thanks to your mother. That's super. In Kelly Valley, I'm seeing loads of people reporting sightings on videos about pterosaurs. Yeah, I noticed that too, because a lot of them are on my channel, my videos, and I see so many comments. I should probably get better organized. A lot of them I do have in my record. They put on my computer, but I'm afraid I may have missed some of them. I have to keep track of them too, because I deal with things a little differently when I'm communicating with somebody on a telephone or by email than when it's done just as a comment and on more indirectly. I still keep them on my computer, my records though, and I still do some looking into them. Yeah, I have one associate. I've been out of touch with him for years now in that part of the country back east. And of course, we have Cynthia Lee in Raleigh, North Carolina, but she's pretty busy with her work as a veterinary technician. I don't know how much she could do to help with somebody in Durham, but you can contact her maybe, find a way to contact Cynthia Lee. Okay. Could they be growing in population? That's A. Rocks. That is a good question. This is from A. Rocks. Let's get into this. Could they be growing in population? I'll give you a straight conjecture just off the top of my head. They're not growing in population necessarily. They might, but not necessarily. The reason we're having more and more sightings that keep going and magnifying it, like everybody's talking about seeing a pterodactyl now, is because of the internet and the way it's organized and the way my associates and I have been publicizing this for many years now. And so many more people are getting online, even old people that used to never use a computer, they're still getting online. And we got many, many more people learning about this and more people reporting it. And I'm not the only one behind this. Years ago, it was many years ago, I used to get skeptics and critics, even one or more professional paleontologists who just assumed that everything to do with the ropin, modern pterosaur, it was a ropin, came from Jonathan Whitcomb. That's me. That's me. And he used bathroom language. He didn't use the word fossil, but he used bathroom language to describe my publications and so I'm behind it all. So they made me look bad. They said something that made me look bad, so they can dismiss all these ropin reports because Whitcomb is behind them. They cannot do that anymore. No, there are people doing radio broadcasts. It's on television programs. I have more associates now. A person's on expedition right now in Papua New Guinea. It's getting bigger and it's getting better known. It's not all from me. No, I'm delighted. And if I'm never famous and nobody ever puts me on Wikipedia, I'm fine with that. That's okay. I don't like Wikipedia. There's too much problems with it anyway. The English version of Wikipedia I do not recommend in general, especially with this kind of situation with modern pterosaurs. I do not recommend ever going to Wikipedia English, but other languages, they're much better. They're more open to reporting things about ropin and other words for modern pterosaurs. Okay, Uncanny Valley. I think a sighting map being all the recorded sightings for North America and the world would be a great resource if you ever have the time. I've done things like that before. It's always have to change them. As far as the map is concerned, it is some work, and I have to keep changing it. Yeah, that's a good point, though. Okay. Okay, I need to get back to another screen on my desktop now. But in general, no, I don't think they're growing population. Just people are learning about them and they're talking more about it. Yeah, but thank you, Uncanny Valley, for that suggestion. That's good. And I do have an associate of mine who is involved with things like that. At least maybe 2 associates, in fact, involved with something like that. Yeah, if that one in Raleigh, North Carolina, Uncanny Valley just mentioned really had a funky crest. Yeah, we can talk about that. Alex just drew it for the video. Yeah, we can talk about that now. Birds in the flight are the most challenging subjects to photograph, clearly. Need a nice zoom lens, not a phone cam. Yeah, but the best cam is the one you have with you, or so they say, laughing outside. Yeah, laughing out loud. So let's get to that. Cynthia Lee drew, from her memory, the head crest. Now, I haven't talked about this much for years, but I need to deal with it now. It's possible the animal she saw might have a head crest similar to that, though it's extremely different. It's what I call, in statistics, I call an outlier. I mean, he's honest. It's nothing to do with liar. No, an outlier means a statistical idea that something is unusual enough that it may not be closely related to other things in the statistics. But I can mention it here. It's possible that may be a very unusual form of ropin. I have some doubts. But, I can be mistaken. Maybe she really did remember it correctly. But some eyewitnesses, under some circumstances, can see something for a brief moment, or sometimes a little longer moment, and not remember it correctly, perhaps. If it's real and that's really the way the head crest is, then wow, I hope to see more people report that and to sketch it that way. And I'll keep an open mind until that happens. So it could be a very unusual species, if possible. So we'll just keep an open mind on that. Yeah. So where are we in terms of how we're doing here? We still have a lot of people active here, so let's keep going. The main point of pterosaur sightings in general are the ropen, which is like this. It has a very straight head crest coming right back at a curve. And I don't say that all of them have to be curved like this, but it's just this is a common one. And some eyewitnesses do see the teeth in the beak, clear teeth, many little sharp teeth. Some eyewitnesses will say that the teeth that are closer to the end of the beak, the front of the mouth, are larger or longer. They will mention something like that. But in general, it's like this. So that was not really the title of this video. That's not the title. I forgot to fix that, and I've been so busy this week. But this is the contact form to communicate with me. Please feel free. As soon as you send me one thing with the contact form, then from then on it'll be regular email. But the first time, you need to just be patient, fill out a little bit for this form. You don't have to put much down, just briefly, something, a couple words or something, and then we can communicate by email. And Yancy Ricks, any sightings suggest that they were toothless? Oh, it's a good question. I hadn't thought about toothless. We know from fossils, of course, that there are toothless pterosaurs, of course. In fact, the pterodactyloid type in general are generally without any teeth. But as far as somebody saying that they didn't have any teeth, that's not something people generally will see. They generally people will tell me what they saw, not what they didn't see. If that's a good question, it's possible. I mean, they have different species that people have seen. Possibly, maybe some of them that people see actually don't have teeth. The one in Lakewood, California, a few years ago, where the creature is perched on a telephone line, and the end of the tail came to be within 18 feet of the lady's head in the clear daylight in the middle of the day, where the dog was barking at her. She didn't get a good look at the head, as I recall. Best I can recall, I don't have the information in front of me here, but it was, so she didn't tell me whether or not they had teeth. I don't think she mentioned that, but it was basically, it flew away quickly, and she saw the wings. She heard the flapping like fabric, it's just loud flapping of the wings, loud noise. So it's possible, Yancy Ricks, possible some of the sightings people have might be of animals that don't have teeth. But the reason many people don't notice any teeth is simply because the animal had its mouth closed, or it was too far away, or they were concentrating on the head crest or the tail or something like that. Generally, that's what's going on. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, that they didn't have teeth. But possible. Anybody else, please feel to join us. We have new people tonight that we hadn't had before. I'm delighted. This means we're increasing. And I hope people come back. If y'all come back, because I'm going to try to bring in new things, new pictures, new videos. And I've just been so busy this week, I haven't been able to bring in a lot of new things, except, of course, for the video footage of a living pterosaur that we have in Papua New Guinea, which is a valid video. There's no hoax involved with this. This is real, folks. If you're just joining us, this is real. The two eyewitnesses, or American eyewitnesses, that I know very well, they're honest men, and they reported to me it was a pterosaur. They saw it much better than what we can see in the video that was recorded by them. And this is in 2015, deep in the mainland of New Britain Island, which is a very large tropical island in Papua New Guinea. I haven't been there myself, but I did explore a smaller island to the west of this island in the year 2004. I led an expedition there, but we were after a different type of modern pterosaur, a ropen, similar to this. That was what my associates and I were looking for. in 2004 on Umboy Island. But this one does not have a long tail. No, this is a different type. It's not quite as nocturnal in behavior. It comes out more in the daytime than the Ropin does. And these two Americans, Milt Marcy and Peter Beach, that recorded this video in 2015, just a few months earlier, I interviewed them here by this river in the United States. Well, they also got to see a nest of one of these modern pterosaurs. It was mostly destroyed because of the terrible storm that came through there, but they did see what was left of the nest. And the natives told them that the flying creatures sometimes would stay in one would stay in the nest for one or more days. It would stay in there, wouldn't come out. But how can the native really know that? I don't know. That's kind of questionable if they could really know that. What native in a jungle is going to sit and watch a nest in a tree for hours and hours and hours and hours? And no, they're human. Natives are human. Not going to do that. But that was what they told the two Americans anyway. Okay. Hey, Rock says, so do they fold their wings like birds? I wouldn't expect them to. It's a good question. Generally, pterosaurs probably, because they're built differently, they would fold their wings differently. But generally, people see them when they're flying. In general, they see them flying rather than when they have their rings at rest. But that's a good thing. I should probably look into when one is. Let me make a note of this here in red ink here. Red ink. Roosting with wings folded. I'll make a note of this. So if somebody does report one that was perched when they saw it, and how were the wings folded? Thank you for mentioning that. I'll keep this in mind. How were wings folded? Yeah. I'll keep that note here. I can take mental notes, of course, but you know what happens to mental notes. They just disappear sometimes. Thank you for mentioning that. Uncanny Valley, someone mentioned on one of the videos that they were from a neighboring island and also had a flying creature that lived in the volcano and glowed. The island name started with an A, I think. Was that in Papua New Guinea, that island? What island would that be? In Papua New Guinea, I could just tell you a bunch of names of islands around the Tolakiwa, Umboy, Du Breton, and then there are many smaller islands, have different names. Bougainville Island, New Ireland. I don't know. She mentioned they that saw one perching. I don't know. But letter A, I don't know. If in Papua New Guinea, there's the mainland, and the mainland there's an archipelago that's south of the city of Lae, Papua New Guinea. What's the name of that archipelago? It's in the TV episode of Destination Truth. Yeah, Destination Truth. What is the archipelago? Anyway, don't recall the name of that. Interesting. I believe that modern pterosaurs are found all across Papua New Guinea and also in other parts of the Southwest Pacific. Very common. Ioiki or something thereabouts. Wiki. Well, there's flying creatures have names that are like the core and the Zikioik. is it the Zikioik? That's a flying creature on the mainland, which is not too far inland on the mainland of New Guinea. The Zikioik gets its name from the sound it makes. And I know of an explorer there. He's anonymous. As far as I know, he's still anonymous. I haven't contacted him in years. I need to contact these people. I've been just all up here making videos and blog posts for so many years. I had to contact my old associates. But anyway, the Zikioik sounds a little bit like that. Zikioik. That's not the name of the location. That's the name of the animal. And I could tell you what happened with one little boy here. He died after being attacked by one of these. It was on the mainland of New Guinea, and this is many years ago, many, many years ago. But the uncle and the other family members, they warned this little boy, probably all the children, they warned, keep away from the Zikioik. If you ever see one, keep away from it. But one of them had contact, did something, and the boy lost consciousness. And so the uncle was carrying this little boy to some place to get medical help. On the way, the Zikioik was following them. It was following. Apparently it wanted its meal. It wanted to eat the boy. And eventually they lost contact with the animal. But unfortunately, the boy went into convulsions and died before he got to the clinic or wherever it was he was going. And when he got to the clinic, there were no marks on the body, no apparent wounds or anything. But that's why I tell you, be careful. Don't get close to these. They don't have to be big to be dangerous. And I tell you, in one area of Canada, in British Columbia, where this girl at nighttime, I think she was about 13, something like that, but she thought there was some kind of commotion at night, and she thought some of the local boys were making fun of her, so she ran to teach. She's a big girl for her age, so she ran to teach them a lesson. Just to leave me alone. It wasn't the local boys. It was what they call the devil bird there, right there. And as she ran toward it, it got scared out of its wits, and it flew away. But as it did, it emitted something she called smoke. But it's a mist or a vapor that's emitted perhaps by the mouth or whatever. It's emitted as a defense mechanism in this case, though it's not always used in defense. And fortunately, the girl was not close. I didn't inhale this stuff. And my wife will get the phone, don't we? But anyway, that's another story. But she was okay. But some of these modern pterosaurs can be dangerous. In Canny Valley, they have an ability to hurt you in ways you would never imagine. Just don't inhale when they spit this stuff at you. Oh, Uncanny Valley, it was definitely the name of the island. Okay, he was simply saying that neighboring islands had the same creature. Maybe they go there to nest. Okay, Uncanny Valley, was this a television program you saw or a video on YouTube? Do you remember anything about that? Because I'm very interested. It sounds like venom, just like Komodo follow their victims after biting them. Yeah, the Komodo dragon. When I was a little boy, everybody, people knew about the Komodo dragon, but the book that I had about them, all the books talking about said they didn't have venom. It was just they had this bacteria in their saliva, and that causes problems. People get sick from that. Now, in recent years, scientists know that the Komodo dragon has venom. It has venom when this bites. Yeah, why guess? Imagine a pterosaur pooping on your car windshield. Actually, I got something like that once. Not pleasant. It was, remember, I don't think it was in the windshield or some other part of the car, but it was a big pterosaur or something, and it made a mess on that car. Oof. Okay, Uncanny Valley. It was a comment on a video. Can't remember which one. If I can, I will copy it down. Thank you so much, Uncanny Valley. That sounds interesting. Matt got some damn yuck. Okay. I wonder if pterosaurs are related to the big black bird sightings. Well, there are sighting reports, and I've gotten some of them, not many, some of them myself. Well, I believe that there is at least one species a very, very large bird with feathers in North America. That is, they're not pterosaurs, they have feathers, but they're birds, but they're just bigger than the biggest eagle, you know, the bald eagle. They're bigger than that bald eagle. And there's different reports of that. Yeah, I believe them, but it's just not my specialty. You know, I have to try to stick with what I know. Uncanny Valley, yeah, the How to Hunt channel just reported one on pooping on the car in Chicago. They took a sample. I don't know what they can learn from the poop, but they might find out what the animal was eating anyway. That's interesting in Chicago. Huh? That's interesting. Hunt channel. Fascinating. Wow, I'm glad we keep communicating. See, we can learn from each other and we can get what other people are doing and let people know. Get out. Let people know. Let the public know about this. Is super. And Mac got some, said, are they thunderbirds? Oh, yeah, I understand that concept. But thunderbirds is not a technical, scientific, you know, label. It's, you know, it's whatever you want it to be, perhaps, sort of. Not my specialty. In Kenny Valley, lots of folks report seeing them ahead of storms, too. Maybe they're the real animal behind thunderbirds. Oh, it very well could be, of course. They could be these very large birds. But I suspect maybe the word also is sometimes used for a large pterosaur, too. And so the idea of wings is, I mean, the idea of feathers on the wings is not necessarily. In Mothman sightings, yeah, you got Mothman sightings. And so these kind of things, you have different names and different labels for sometimes the same thing, sometimes different things. It's confusing and difficult to say. Lots of recent Mothman type sightings in Chicago area back in 2017 or so makes you go, yeah. And Kenny Valley also, I thought Mothman could be one too, or maybe a Pterodactyl. Yeah. Yeah, I have a sighting of different sightings. Sometimes I get something, an outlier, when you're in statistics called an outlier, where it just does not fit with other descriptions. You know, something really weird. Occasionally I get something really strange. I mean, yeah, stranger than just modern pterodactyls in general. I will get some and I have to just say, well, I don't know. It is what it is. Oh. Yeah. So we have, let me see, how many people do we have? They must have a really good night tonight. Really good. Good participation. Going down a little bit and then come back up again. So we have people here. Thank you for participating, all those who are here. Remember that after this live stream here, the video that we're recording now will be available on the channel, which is Protect Animal Life. The channel will be available on this channel, and you'll be able to go back over this and see what we've been talking about and discussing and seeing what we've been looking at. But generally, the thing I most want to bring up is that this is real video footage of a modern pterosaur on New Britain Island in Papua New Guinea. I've never been on this particular island. I've seen it from a distance, a little bit of it, from the coastline of it. A very large island, and this was an expedition in 2015. The best part of the sighting, however, is not in this video footage, which is horrible. It's in the eyewitness accounts of the two Americans who described this modern pterosaur. It's not a rope, and it's not like what I have behind me here. It does not have a long tail with a flange on the end of the tail. It's not that kind of pterosaur, but it is real. And so the video, even though it doesn't show much about what it's like, it shows you that there's no mystical or magical or supernatural thing about modern pterosaurs that you can't videotape them, that somehow your camera will not, no, nothing like that. It's, if you have the peace of mind, a state of mind, the state of mind to be able to get your camera out and start recording, you can photograph and videotape a modern pterosaur, no doubt about it. And this is not the only one I have, but this is one of the more important ones. But the most important thing is a biologist from the United States said, quote, "The animal we saw, it was a pterosaur and flew not like a bird, not like a bird," unquote. That's from the biologist who used to be a biology professor at a small college there in the Portland, Oregon area, or somewhere in that part of the northwestern United States. I'm not sure exactly about that particular college. So, but I know him. I know Peter Beach. He's an honest man, and I believe him. I absolutely believe him. Very expensive to go on these expeditions. I lost track of how many thousands of dollars. My sometimes will bring this up again. How much money did I spend on that expedition? I don't know. Thousands and thousands of dollars. I got some wonderful interviews with native eyewitnesses. However, I didn't see the animal itself. I got no video of the modern pterodactyl at all. It worked out good in the long run because it allows me to concentrate on what other persons have seen and try to determine what people have been watching and looking at. Yeah, I'm grateful that I have all these eyewitnesses that have helped me in so many ways. We've been on this a long time. When did we start? Before 5 o'clock. Now it's almost 7. Yeah, we probably need to wrap it up pretty soon, unless somebody has some special questions they want to get to now. Yeah. Yeah, Uncanny Valley said, needs to be a decent camera, though most phones have terrible cameras that just aren't up to task. It's not just that. I mean, I tell you, I've mentioned this before to people in videos and so on. I used to be a professional camera operator, meaning I'd videotape different things, not just weddings, but also special events. And I was a forensic videographer for attorney firms. I would go and videotape for evidence that could be presented in court legally in a court of law. So I knew video recordings and so on. The average person that has a camera or a cell phone has not practiced using it in a professional way. They'll have their hands going all over, and they're jerking. They won't know what to point it, and they'll just go back and forth, without any rhyme or reason behind what they use the camera. But even if you have a good sighting and you think and you're able somehow miraculously to think clearly and get your camera ready and take off the lens cover if you have it and turn it on, and still the animal is there flying, this pterodactyl or whatever, and you can hold it, or you're going to hold it. Look at how my hands move like this. Do you notice how my hand moves? Following an imaginary pterodactyl, of course. You know how smoothly it moves? Notice my hand movement here. You notice how smoothly my hand moves? That takes practice, and it's not easy even now. After practicing this for years, it's still I have to concentrate and really concentrate on that steady motion. It's not a natural motion for the human arms and hands to make. It's not natural. You have to concentrate on using different muscles in different ways to get a good video of something that's moving. It's handheld, it's called handheld camera work. For video, yeah. And not many people have that experience and practice and even know to do something like that and ever think about that. But anyway, yeah. In Wygate shades, do they make a guttural burbling sound like the guy on Rope and Network vocalized? Curious. Yeah, I remember that. That was when I was interviewed, right? Wygate, that was the interview I had, unless he said it in another interview, maybe not mine. But he interviewed me, he mentioned that, as I recall. been a few weeks ago. I should recall something from a few weeks ago, but yeah, he mentioned that weird sound. I've gotten things somewhat similar to that, perhaps, in Lakewood, California, a few years ago, in the daytime when the lady mentioned she heard a kind of a burping sound. Possibly it's the same thing, but just she used a different word for it, and maybe it's the same sound. But I don't know. Whitecap says the host guy was talking about something that buzzed his car one night. Yeah, I remember that in Weaver Canyon, Washington. Said it made this burbling sound above his open sunroof. Yeah, that's it. I think you're on this. I think that was when I was interviewed. Am I right, Wide Gauge? I think that was the radio talk show in which I was interviewed, but too dark to make out what it was for sure. Though he might have said the same thing on another interview, other than mine, of course. It could be a different one, but a few weeks ago I was interviewed there. As I recall, I think he mentioned that. No, wait a minute. He wasn't interviewing me. No. Scratch all that about being interviewed. I was not. He was talking about me briefly. That was what it was. It was not an interview with me. He was talking about me. That was Jacob. Yeah, I was not interviewed by him. I mean, not recently, a couple of years ago maybe, but no, that one, he mentioned my name to Cynthia Lee, but the main point of that interview was Cynthia Lee and her sighting in North Carolina. That's a really, a matter of fact, I was so excited about that. I don't know why I was confusing that with when I was interviewed earlier this year, but that particular interview of Cynthia Lee, he was getting a lot of things from that, and it was an excellent video. I highly recommend it. The channel name, or it's not the channel name on YouTube, it's he uses this phrase, Ropen Radio Network. I highly recommend this particular interview. I actually made a video to recommend that video. I was so excited about it. It's just beautiful. I don't usually, I think that was the first time I've ever made a video in which the main point was recommending somebody else's video on a different channel, not my channel. Yeah, I really was excited about that video. That was the video you linked to us a few days ago. Yeah, he probably retells it. Yeah, that I wasn't interviewed. No, he mentioned my name briefly a couple of times, or maybe 3 times. Yeah, he mentioned me, but it was the same general area where I was in near the Yakima River, but not exactly. Yeah, that's interesting. I do occasionally get a report, and it's about 7 o'clock now in Utah. Let's keep going. Let me tell you this, though, and you can add more comments. Occasionally I will get a report where somebody says it makes a sound similar to like clicking, like maybe it's a echolocation sound. I take that. I try to keep that and take great note of that because that can be important. Echolocation. Whoa. What a wonderful world we live in. I say my prayers, say thank you, God, for this incredible world. The living things that have such incredible abilities and things that they can do. The bats that have echolocation. Now, maybe modern pterosaurs with echolocation is incredible. Oh. Yeah, thanks for sharing it. Yeah, that's incredible. That's a wonderful video that Jacob Agueros. Oh, I forgot his last name again now. Jake, I think it is. Jake. Anyway, you just look up Ropen Radio Network. Ropen Radio Network. And this is incredible. This is interviewing Cynthia Lee, who lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. But we're going to have to call it a night, so my wife won't say, oh, where's my husband? We usually watch a movie at night. So we're going to have to say goodbye and come back again, or try the same time every Saturday. And watch for my other videos on this channel, Protect Animal Life, and also on my other channel, the older channel, which has some videos about modern pterosaurs, but the name of that other channel is simply my name, Jonathan Whitcomb. God bless and take care of yourselves, and let's get together again. Thank you for being here. Have a good night and a good weekend.